All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right.
Are we live now?
We are live now.
Good.
We're making sure which was live. Is it our audio or our video?
And we're still in the process of counting down the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's right. We don't have a snap that tells action. So we don't have that yet.
We will get one of those for next time.
We'll get one.
We'll be very official next time.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome back to Make It Make Sense with Dr. Mary McDonald.
And Maureen Yarber.
Yes.
And you know what? It doesn't always make sense. And so that's why we're here to at least talk about how it could make sense and how also the journey of grace and faith is so much a part of making it make sense.
It really is. And just really giving a little wisdom through the messes that happen in life. Mm-hmm. And, you know, yesterday, right before we were taping, or right before we turned this on, we usually catch up for a few minutes beforehand. And, you know, yesterday I was reminded that you never know what the day holds, which I should not have to be reminded of that. Just saying for the record.
None of us should have to be reminded of that.
None of us should have to be reminded of that.
I mean, forget the day, minute to minute. You know, things change, plans change.
It's so true.
Things happen.
It's so true. Yesterday, Olivia is away at school, our youngest daughter, and she sent Joe and I a text, and she said, "Hey, in case you guys hear anything, I just wanted to let you know I'm okay." Which she's done that before when there's been tornadoes, you know, that were touching down around her,
awesome.
Which we had no idea. And yesterday, I guess it turned out to be a hoax, but an active shooter on campus, what they thought. And it causes panic.
Hoax or not.
The
feelings are real that you get. And those poor kids that had to hide in closets or say goodbye to loved ones, call people. I mean, they didn't know what was going to happen.
It's so true. My sister-in-law was on the phone with my niece, who was also a student there. And she said she could hear girls just in the background just crying, you know, because you're scared. You never know truly how you're going to react in a situation until you're there. You don't. You can rehearse it a million times, but you really don't know. But anyway, we were also talking about when, you know, you had gone to the dentist yesterday.
Yes, and I didn't know what was going to happen.
You didn't know what was going to happen.
And it turned out, I mean, he's great, but it was an experience.
And it
turned out that, you know, that was just part 1. So we have to go back for part 2. And you just don't know. And when you're sitting there totally helpless, you have to let go of any outcome, any consequence, because you're not in control.
Well, Mary, you shared with me one time a day that really took a turn where you know, you were, I think, at school. You think you were at the office.
Actually, I was at Incarnation.
Oh, you were where my kids went to school.
Absolutely. I was doing a school visit, and actually they were having an all schools mass, and I went. And I was talking to people afterwards. Everything was fine. But then on the way home, and I was actually heading to meet someone else after that, but on the way to that meeting, all of a sudden it just felt like somebody pulled a plug on you. It's like I started.
Were you driving?
I was driving.
So you were actually driving.
I was driving on Bob, which is not always a good thing on a good day. But I was driving to the meeting, and I just felt like everything was draining. Like I was going to pass out any minute. So I got weaker and weaker, and I pulled over to make sure I was in the right lane so I could pull off if I had to. But then I called Joe, and I pulled into a parking lot on the way home. I went back, and I called Joe, and I said, I don't think I'm going to make it home. I feel so bad. He said, well, what hurts? I said, nothing. It's just like I feel like I'm going to pass out. He said, where are you? I said, I'm at a parking lot, a shopping center. And he said, well, go home. Try and get home. Because I was probably only 2 miles from the house. He said, try and get home and I'll meet you there. I said, oh, I don't know if I can make it. So he said, no, go home so I can find you. So I headed for the house. I was going probably 10 miles an hour. and just feeling weaker and weaker, going on the side with my blinkers on.
And this was, I mean, how many years ago with this? This had to be 20 years
It
ago.
was 20 years ago.
Okay, because I was going to say you didn't have like the location
No,
sharing and all
no,
of
we
that
didn't have
stuff.
anything like that.
Didn't have Life 365.
No,
and all that.
didn't have any. We were lucky we did have cell phones, because otherwise I don't know what I would have done, but probably died. But anyway, I got home. I got to the top of my driveway, and I couldn't make it anymore. I just knew I was sinking, and so I.
So were you still in the car?
I was still in the car.
So you were still in the car.
I was in the car at the top of the driveway. I couldn't even get out of the car. So I called 911, and I said, something's wrong. I'm feeling really bad. Could somebody come? And they kept saying to me, I remember they kept saying, where are you? And I kept saying, I'm in my driveway. But at that time, there was no location finder. And they said, where is your driveway? What is your address? So I gave them the address, and really within minutes, they were here. There was a fire engine and an ambulance. And they got out, and I could see them looking around, because what they were anticipating, that there was a woman fallen in her driveway, and all they saw was a car. So they came up to the car, and I had the window down, but at that point I could barely talk. And so they said, are you all right? And I said, no. And so just then Joe pulled up too. And so he said, she called me. She said she was going to pass out. So they got me out of the car. They put me on the stretcher. They took my vital signs. They put me in the ambulance. They couldn't see anything, though. The thing was, they couldn't see. There was no fall, no wounds, no.
Because if you can imagine, I mean, Mary, you had just been to a school. You were superintendent of the schools.
Right.
So she was dressed like $1,000,000, like she always is. So very put together.
Yeah.
And you're
my purse.
You got your purse, and you're sitting in your driveway, and you're still, you still have the wherewithal to have made the phone call.
Yeah.
And, these firemen and these EMTs, they come and they never know what they're walking into.
That is true. And they didn't know.
And there's usually such chaos, so this was such a calm
right.
chaos.
But there's usually some injury or something, you know. So so they put me in the ambulance, and they took my blood pressure, and I remember them looking at each other. And at that point, I don't remember the numbers, but it was so low that it was barely any pressure at all. And they said later that it was like I was bleeding out, but there was no wound. So they were so confused. So they tilted it so my head was down, and the dog, I didn't have that dog at the time.
The dog's here to keep the story light.
Yes, to bark at me. But so they tilted me, they inverted the stretcher so that my head would be down to keep the blood flowing. Oh, I guess, I don't really know. But anyway, I made it to the hospital, to the emergency room, and they took me in, but nobody knew what it was.
Do you remember any of that?
Oh,
or
yes.
So you still remember?
I remember everything. Yes, my head was clear, but I just had no, movement, nothing to do.
Mary, I had a surgery, gosh, it's been 20 years ago too. And I hemorrhaged. It was supposed to be just an outpatient surgery, and they ended up admitting me. And I can remember my blood pressure being really low after this. And I was so tired.
Yeah.
But what I remember is Joe being with me in the hospital. My kids were at home. So I think we had someone come over to be with them. And I remember they called someone in the middle of the night. And I remember I kept thinking, I'm just fading away.
Yes.
Nothing hurt, but I could hear I could hear everybody talking. And Joe, I think it really scared him, because he said your blood pressure just kept going down and down. So I can relate to that feeling of just fading.
Yeah, you just
They ended up giving me a blood transfusion and then I was fine. But
because you don't have anything to keep your heart pumping, so you are fainting. So
but there was nothing hurting or nothing.
well,
I saw.
but at that point there wasn't. It was just this feeling. But then when they got me in, they didn't know what it was. Nobody could figure it out. I'll kind of condense the story because it took them a few minutes, and they were in and out. They were monitoring my heart. They couldn't fit, and they took MRI, but they just couldn't figure out what was happening. But at one point, the physician stuck a tube. I remember this. I mean, because you don't care about anything, you just want them to help you. It just started to then, with every beat of my heart, it hurt more and more. So it was like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning, but it was so painful all over my body. So he just took a tube and stuck it into my chest and blood came out. So it was like my heart was drowning in blood, but there was no injury. Like I had been stabbed, but there was no injury. So they couldn't figure it out. And I did have a card in my hand that told them that I had a device in my heart. But I said, and I was holding it and they looked at it, but they didn't know anything about it because it was something that was kind of experimental, kind of new. It was a device that had been put in my heart to close a congenital heart defect, which was a hole in my heart.
And how long had you had that?
A year.
So
11 months.
So you had not had that very
No, and I didn't know until I was an adult that there was such a thing as a hole in my heart. And
maybe you need to pick him up.
yes,
Maybe he wants to.
do you want to be in the show?
I think he wants to just comfort you and be thankful you're here.
Here we go. Here, no, he wants a bone.
Okay. Or he wants a bone.
It's all about our. So, anyway, so they didn't know what it was. This is why, no matter what happens to you, God's in charge. I mean, I know that's easy to say and hard to do, but I saw it happening. I saw it unfolding that day, because as the heart surgeon on call was looking at that, did not know what that was. Another physician walked by, and he looked and he said, we don't know what's wrong with her. She's bleeding internally with something. She has this card. And the other physician said, oh, it's that device. Something happened to the device. He said, I know because I have one myself. Now, what are the odds of that happening?
Of an experimental device.
Yes, that another heart doctor has in him. And so he says, it's got to be that. So what had happened is, just so you know why it was there, the device malfunctioned and perforated my aorta. So it wasn't the heart, it was the aorta, and I was actually bleeding out internally. Usually when somebody...
So do they have any idea how it punctured?
Yes, there were little like spokes on it that rubbed against it and just punctured it.
Wow.
But again, it was experimental, which I didn't know at the time that could happen. But apparently there were only a handful of people that had the device at that time. And with the exception of the physician that had it, there were about maybe 5 or 6 who died because of what happened. The device malfunctioned and they just faded away. They were in a parking lot in a store. They weren't around people to know what was happening or say something, And so anyway, I was lying there right before they figured out what to do. And with every beat of my heart, it was like I cannot tell you, it was waves of excruciating pain that went all through your body. And I didn't know that it was so painful to bleed to death. I just thought you bled to death. But your heart is fighting so hard to stay live and pump, but there's nothing there, and it's drowning. So my son was there, my husband and my son. My son was standing next to the bed in the emergency room, and I looked at him and I said, Matt, I'm not going to make it. I just not going to make it. And so with that, I just I just waited at a place beyond pain, if that makes sense. I was no longer there. I was somewhere else. It was, they call it near death, they call it end of life, they call it one of these experiences.
It's almost is I would assume that it's almost your body going into shock
Probably.
to protect you.
Right. But you
So-
don't feel,
So you stop feeling the pain.
I've stopped feeling anything or seeing anything. I wasn't there. And it was like, apparently I closed my eyes and I wasn't there anymore. And I was somewhere else, and it was a beautiful place. It was like I woke up and I was so conscious of the fact that nothing hurt. There was no pain, and it was so dramatic that
because it was so instant.
right, and it had been so intense. And so I woke up and I thought, oh my gosh, it's gone. That I felt unburdened. This is weird too. I felt unburdened. I felt as if I went somewhere with nothing, and it felt so wonderful.
Did it feel like you were flying?
Not flying, but floating.
Floating.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I was so unburdened. I didn't care about anything. Nothing mattered. I just being in this place was the only thing I thought about, and the only thing I saw. And I was like I had that childlike response where you look around and you think, "Oh my gosh, this is beautiful," and it was. It was that crystal blue, twinkly kind of feeling, and I was like enraptured in it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is beautiful," and then I saw these three figures walking towards me. And they were, excuse me, they weren't like walking while they were like floating.
Kind of
towards me.
floating,
Mhm.
just.
Like me. I was floating, they were floating. And I
Were
remember
they in robes?
they were translucent, yes.
So
Just
translucent,
like, they didn't have exact
like
figures.
silhouettes, kind of.
Yeah, like with long flowing robes, but I knew they were moving towards me. And they had the most beautiful smiles. That's what I remember most of all. And I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel afraid. I just felt like total love. If you could put love into a totality of an experience, that was it. And
So just total welcome.
more than welcome, you become a part of the place. You want to become a part of the place. You know you're supposed to be there. This is where you belong. And I remember the feeling that nothing else existed. This was where I belonged. And so they began to move towards me, and I was sort of reaching out to them and thinking how loved we are, you know. And then I heard somebody call my name, and I looked at them because I thought it was these figures. And somebody said, Mary, Mary, and it was getting louder and louder. And in my mind, I loved my family, my friends, my life. But I was ignoring them on purpose because I knew if I responded to them, I would feel pain. I would go back, and I didn't want to. I wanted to be right where I was. And so I didn't say anything. I just kept moving towards these figures, and it got louder. I said, Mary, come back, stay with us, stay with us. And it was getting louder and louder. And I remember looking at the figures and saying, I'm sorry, I have to go back. They need me. And with that, I opened my eyes. And this overwhelming this overwhelming pain.
Welcome back.
And all I saw like that were these bright lights above my
We have this huge ring of light in
yes.
front of us.
Yes. So I looked up and all I saw were these lights, the doctor's head.
Like the lights in a hospital.
Well,
So
they were in a
lights.
hospital.
Yeah.
And the doctor's head and this, come back, stay with us, and being rushed off to surgery. I remember I remember the whole way. I remember that. And so what they did, once they figured it out, how blessed was I? An aortic rupture, and it doesn't kill me. I mean, everything that happened happened in that mess happened in time, on time, God's time. Do you know? People coming in, people going out, figuring out what it was. And so I lived to tell about that story. But the thing I learned most was that we're never alone, even when we think we are. And before that time, my father had died, and I thought, that must be so terrible, dark and lonely. And then after that incident, my mother died. I thought, oh, she's so happy. This is good. This is good.
So it changed your perspective.
Absolutely. I know that we are on a journey, and the journey's messy, and things happen, but God is always with you, and you are never, ever alone.
I think for someone who's lost children or anyone you love, really, I think it's so reassuring that there's so many people who have these near-death experiences and who share them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have another friend who has had a near-death experience during childbirth.
Oh.
And she talks about, and her daughter talks about being there with her. Her daughter,
The one who was born.
the one who was born.
Oh, my goodness.
And, it's such a reassuring, it makes me feel like it's where we came from.
Right.
And it's where
yes.
we're going home to.
Yes. It is home.
So it is
home.
It is reassuring. And it does,
you know what
it
it
makes
is?
my faith
It is. It's the reality of everything you believe. You see it in real time, even though you're not dead. You see the reality of what you believe. There is life waiting for you.
But there are so many others accounts too who aren't Christian and who don't have, that don't necessarily believe
Right.
in an afterlife, or maybe their beliefs are different, or maybe they are agnostic.
Right.
And they have had these experiences and then come to a different belief after that. So
you can't deny it. You just cannot deny it. Even though no one has, died, but you have been considered that near death, or they call it waiting at a place beyond pain, because you're not declared dead, but you are not there anymore. And it is so reassuring.
Well, it's so interesting, like people who have really gone through some horrific experiences, and perhaps it's not all physical.
Right.
Sometimes it can be a sexual abuse or a just terrible mental abuse. And they have talked about having an out-of-body experience and almost watching, which is so reassuring because, you're so afraid of just all the terrible things that could happen.
We do tend to project all kinds of fears and things happening that are terrible into the future, and we don't know the future. And I think that's what drags us down as humans, is that we're so fearful about things. We don't trust God enough to take care of us. I had 2 experiences yesterday where it was not near death, anything like that, but there was those little things where I thought, oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus, you're taking care of me. I mean, I had a truck come head on to me yesterday and saw me at the last minute and put my bag in his lane, things like that. You think, thank you, Jesus, So we tend to worry about everything, but yet we can't control any of those things we're worrying about.
Well, it's so true. I read someone's message yesterday that talked about, how parents are supposed to protect their children, and being in control. And, I have most definitely learned that, I'm not in control. I wish I was in control. If I had been in control, I wouldn't be sitting here today having this conversation.
Sometimes
I don't
people would
think.
say, well, I would never have children. And then you would miss all the fun of having
that's
them.
for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But I think it really is a reassurance that of faith. And, I've been really studying. I talked about this a lot, what I listen to. And right now, I'm listening to, like I said, Catechism in a Year. I think I've mentioned that. And we finished the sacraments, and now it's how do you really live this faith?
Right.
And that's the real challenge. Is you can talk about it, but to really live in that place where we do have this place to go to,
Right.
then there, I still have tears,
Right.
and
Because we are still human.
and I want to be reminded that, that there's really no need for the tears.
Well, you can have those feelings and appreciate the fact that you feel that deeply. You've lost something that means so much. You do have tears, but know that. And I'd never really told that story to anybody until one time I told one person, and they said, "You need to tell people." So I have been telling people about that, especially people who are close to death themselves. And they've said that they find it very reassuring and just to know that somebody knew something, shared it with them, experienced something, and they don't feel as afraid.
Well, and I think that's the same with any hard thing that we go through. We're all afraid of why we're going through it, how we're going to get through it,
Mm-hmm.
what's, to learn from it, or how we're going to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that we are meant to share.
Oh, I think so.
I think we're meant to share these things because it brings others.
If
It
you
brings
have it,
others solace.
it was never. That's what I felt like. It was not for me. It was not just for me to feel reassured or feel good. It was for me to tell other people, do not be afraid. You're never alone. You're never alone.
I really think that God uses all of our messes, all of the things, every bit of it that are just horrible. That, I started a book too about the saints, and it's really bringing these saints to life. And, it was, I read, and they're just little snippets. So it's not getting deep
Right.
into the way that these saints lived, but they were truly just normal people.
Right.
And, it was talking about St. Augustine. And I think that he had lived quite the life of,
Bon vivant.
well, what does that mean?
I was like, he was living the high life.
He was living the high life, and he was not really following
No.
faith. And he just decided to make a different decision one day. And, that's where I think the Holy Spirit really takes hold and shows us the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And everybody has these stories of some sort in their lives of experiencing something hard, something difficult. And things that happen to us really are meant to be shared. God uses us, but he also expects us to share what he just used with others.
I kind of picture it like he's kind of holding your hand, and he's kind of like bringing you to the edge, and you're like, do I tell? Do I not?
And it's hard.
And I do think that you have to be a little bit careful because,
it's hard. It's hard to tell.
Well, and some people are going to be receptive.
And some people think you're crazy.
And some people think you're crazy.
Yep. Yeah,
so
that's okay. It's not for us to judge the people and what they think. It's just for us to tell the story so that we can help people. Do you think that we're here because we had no mess in our life and we have all the answers? No, we're here today with you because of all of the messes that we've had to try to clean up and move on with grace and love and peace.
Well, and I think, Mary, I really think that your experience, one of the first things you said to me, and this is probably a good place to close, but one of the things that you said to me when you came out after Tommy died is you said he was never meant for this world. And you said he was always meant to go home. He was always meant. His journey was done, and he was meant to be there. And I think you said it with such grace and conviction that, it just was reassuring to know that, my boys are good.
Oh, they are. They are. and they're joyful.
And they're joyful. And so, thank you for sharing that
Oh, thank
today.
you. Thank you for asking and getting that started. But thank you for sharing your journey too, because that's what we're really here to do is share. We'd like to share your journey. So if you would like to contact us, how can they go about that?
Well, we've got a new email. So we've got
we're moving right along.
It's MIMS, MIMS, make it make sense, and then M and M. So
MIMS M&M.
MIMS M and M.
Is there an N or an ampersand?
It's and. M and M, like Mary and Maureen.
Like M&Ms.
Like M&M, yes. So make it at gmail.com. And also you can message us on Instagram. You can like us, and please share the episode with anyone who has had mess in our lives, because sometimes we don't know what to say to our friends, but we can point them in a direction, and hopefully we can.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, we can be that for someone.
Yeah, if you can't say it yourself, then just send them a message.
Yes.
And that will help. It will help more than you know.
And we will see you next time.
Take care.